Hey, welcome in. This is Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich for Live Weather Impact. It is Tuesday, February 10th. It is the February 10th. All right, it's hard to imagine how quickly February is going. Feels like we were just in January and it took forever to get through. So February is going much quicker. And today, finally, some warm air for folks that were tired of the cold snap. A lot of folks love winter weather. Don't get me wrong, I love a good snow, but it has been a long stretch of cold weather, and usually in the Carolinas it doesn't last this long. So today was kind of a breath of fresh air, especially if you had any time to get outside and enjoy it. Right now, though, the clouds have thickened back up, and that's a twofold issue for tonight. It's already warm air in the region, but when you throw clouds over us now, we're not going to see much of a cooling trend tonight, because usually clear skies you can radiate down much colder than you actually think you could be. But I'll talk about that big diurnal change today that actually was a big part of those clear skies. But we've got rain to our west, and I do think you'll wake up to some showers tomorrow. Not that it's going to be a huge deal, but we could see a few sprinkles, especially around sunrise. Now, look at all that warmth. We're still in the 70s now. It's 6:30, and it's 70 degrees in Charlotte. The record high, by the way, is way up there at 76. So we weren't quite record territory, but we were close. The change from yesterday, dramatic. We were in the 50s yesterday. Today, 25 degrees warmer than that. And right now, as I mentioned, we're still in the 60s and near 70. Pretty nice afternoon. Now let's look at the high and low temperature, because it's always nice to kind of see a day like today. You see the averages, 56 and 34. The records, 76 and 8. But look at our low this morning, 30 degrees, okay? We jumped 43 degrees. And Tim and I will talk a lot about this, but we call that a diurnal swing in temperature. That's day to night or night to day, depending on how you want to look at it. Basically, a 24-hour change in temperature. That's an all-timer for us, honestly. You look at the top 10 biggest diurnal swings in temperature for Charlotte. This would put us for a tie for number 10, 43. The most ever is 48. Now, this is a crazy one. In April and March, you kind of see a lot of these days because it's dry. And if you think about the equinox, you have equal day and night usually around this time, so you can get really cold at night and really warm during the day. But back on April 18th, 2016, we started the day at 38. That would have been chilly, especially by April standards, but it was 86 in the afternoon. I mean, that is a crazy swing. The second one here is 45. We went from 30 to 75. We weren't too far from that today. That could have been one of those kind of big swings. But you kind of see here, we've had some really cold mornings and some really warm afternoons in that late February, March, April timeframe. There is one November date on here, I believe. Number 4, November 9th, 2021, 35 and 78. So you tend to see this in the spring and fall when you have equal day and night, but you also have really dry air. Desert climates are like this. It can get super cold at night and super warm during the afternoon. Now tonight we won't have that swing because we got clouds moving in. Maybe even some showers. We'll be lucky to drop below 60 tonight, which is crazy because that's above our average high for this time of year. And tomorrow, even though we have rain and clouds in the morning and a cold front, I still think we'll easily get into the 60s tomorrow. So another mild day before the cold air funnels back in. Now, what's going to happen tonight is we've got a cold front approaching from the north and west. It brings in some clouds and showers in the morning, but the front takes all day to clear through, and the cold air lags a little bit behind. So that's why we could still get into the 60s before the cold air moves into the region, and then we start to see some sunny skies return for the end of the week. So certainly looks like a pretty nice day tomorrow, even though we could wake up to some clouds and some showers. Now, long range, once that front moves through, we see moisture increasing from the west, and this will be our weekend setup. Right now, I think most of Valentine's Day could end up being mostly dry, which is good news if you have plans on Saturday. The only concern I have is that the rain could come in right around dinner time, and that's when a lot of folks will be heading out to dinner. So make sure you bring your umbrella just in case. But Sunday certainly looks like a wet day. You'll see this big storm system kind of envelops the whole southeast, including all of North and South Carolina. And notice no wintry precip here. Even in the mountains, this is going to be a rain setup. It's not like it's going to be super warm. When we talk about warm and precipitation standpoints, we're just saying, is it above freezing? This is going to be a cold rain in some areas, probably 40s, and maybe upper 30s in a few really cold spots. We'll keep an eye on that cold air damming setup because sometimes you can trap some cold air, especially up against the mountains. But right now, it's all indications are this is going to be a rain event. There's really no signals for wintry precip. Now, we need the rain. We'll talk about this most likely coming up on Thursday as we get the drought monitor to come back out. And I it's not going to improve. I can tell you that right now. So we're going to need this rainfall. We're in moderate to severe drought for most of the Carolinas. And with a little bit of rain tomorrow, none for Thursday, Friday. Saturday's mostly dry until late in the day. That's when we'll see the rain chances kind of increase going into Sunday. So that kind of sets the table for what's heading our way. And unlike yesterday, the 7-day rainfall forecast has trended down a little bit, which tells me, we don't have a ton of moisture heading our way. Yesterday we had a chance of maybe 2 to 3, maybe outside 4. If you look at some of these totals, we're trending more towards like 1 inch to 2 inches at most. So basically cut in half the rain that we saw over a 7-day period. Now, that's going to be welcomed regardless. I mean, any rain at all will certainly help. When we look at the temperature trend as well, pretty warm pattern. And I'll show you this coming up in the 7 and 10-day forecast, but this trend of milder air certainly looks like it's going to be sticking around at least through the end of the month. It doesn't mean winter's over yet. It just means every day we go closer to March, the chances of winter precip decline. They really go downhill once you get past mid-March. So we probably got a good month of things to watch out for before we're completely done with any wintry weather. Planning for the weekend, Valentine's Day, Saturday, maybe close to 60. Clouds and showers moving by the evening. Sunday certainly looks to be the wetter of the 2 days, so I would definitely count on there being some precipitation in there. And my graphic jumped all of a sudden for some reason. Beautiful view of Uptown there. We'll go to the 7-day forecast. It is a gorgeous night out there. Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast shows those temperatures staying pretty mild here over the next couple of days. Even the mid-50s won't be horrible. Sunday might be the coldest day just because of the cloud cover and the showers, so kind of that evaporative cooling. So I do think that will be probably the coldest day we see. When I show you the 10-day forecast, you'll see how mild the weather does stay. Temperatures next week back in the 60s, even near 70 by Wednesday and Thursday. So all signs point to a pretty mild pattern setting up here for the next 7 to 10 days. We'll keep an eye on the Sunday setup right now. Cold rain more than likely. No winter precip in the forecast currently, but we'll still keep an eye on it. Coming up, we're going to talk more about the crazy diurnal swings in temperature. That's a funny word we like saying, but we'll talk about that with Tim. Talk about snow cover, which is still on the ground. That's coming up in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, everybody. Tim Buckley joins me from WFMY, and Tim, boy, it was kind of a nice day for everybody across the Carolinas. It's been a while. I don't think there was a lot of complaints going on, but it was crazy warm. But we started crazy cold this morning. How warm did you guys get today?
Crazy day all the way around, and the morning was super cold. We got up to 69 in Greensboro for this
Nice.
afternoon. So impressive warmth, but consider the morning, we started out at 24 degrees.
Ooh.
So for us, that's a 45-degree jump throughout the day, and that's number 2 all time for us.
Wow.
Our biggest one all time is 47 degrees. So 45 puts us right there in that second spot. There were a couple others at 44, but we're at number 2 now. So I was saying, so a lot of folks here, if you weren't born in 1971, this is the biggest change that you've had in your life around here, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was actually, even though I kind of forecasted it, I was still kind of stunned that we actually did jump that much because it was cold last night. I remember driving home thinking, man, it's cold out here. Are we really going to get into the 70s tomorrow? And sure enough, we went from 30 all the way to 72. And that happened at 2 o'clock. So I was I thought maybe we might get to 75, which would have been a crazy number to get to. That was actually number 10 on our list. So a little bit further down. We have a lot of ties. Okay. 48 is our biggest, which I love this stat. This is one of my favorite stats, by the way, because it's one of those things as a weather geek, you get super excited. Diurnal change in temperatures. But back in April of 2016, we had a low of 38 and we got up to 86 in the afternoon.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. But number 2 was very similar to today. It was March 12th, 2005. We had a low of 30 and we got to 75 in the afternoon. And we almost did that today. We only got to 72. 73. But I thought for a while maybe that would be in jeopardy. But yeah, these are crazy stats. And Tim, I don't know about the dates for some of yours, but when you look at these dates, they're all like, outside of one in January, there's one in November. They're all kind of March, April, which is like that time of year when we have equal day, equal night. And it's usually super dry and calm winds. And so there is a time of year where this type of swing is kind of more common than others, right?
Yep, our record setter is in April, and we had a lot of Aprils and Marches on the list as well. Not a ton of Februaries, but I think it's a similar notion. It's like you had the really cold air in place, but you knew that you were going to have this big, strong push of southwest winds moving in ahead of it. And so that's kind of what we were able to do for today. Burlington, which is another site up here in our area, they actually got a 50-degree jump. So they went from this morning at 21 up to 71. So
Wow.
Pretty impressive to see even a 50-degree jump at a major site in our area as well. So just kind of cool. I'm not sure if everyone else finds it as interesting as you and I do, but I know I certainly enjoy it.
I want to say I saw one area that was close to us. It's in our market. I think it was Statesville that had a pretty big jump today as well. I'm going to actually look it up right now because I swear it was like 50 degrees, but I'm going to have to look it up real quick. So on the fly, I'm going to look up Statesville. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and because you guys had wild swings, you guys have still snow on the ground in parts of your area, which made this morning so cold, but also it's pretty amazing that you got this warm this afternoon with still snow on the ground. Talk about the snow cover up there, because I saw it on our imagery, our visible imagery today, but I was kind of blown away. There's still that much snow up there.
Yeah, and it definitely varies. So, just kind of my daily routine, a lot of times I'll try and get out to the park and do a little walking or jogging or something like that. Haven't been doing that the last couple of weeks because it's been difficult to get around and I've been tired. But in any case, this was today. First time out there in a little while. This is a national park we have up here, one of the battlegrounds from the Revolutionary War, but it's a good place to go around. And you can see it's a pretty shaded area, but this is still snow. And actually, it's still mostly sleet, Brad. So we got about 2 inches of that sleet from the first storm, which was over 2 weeks ago now. And then on top of that, we got the 10 inches of the fluffy snow. But that icy, nasty sleet never really fully melted, especially in the shadier spots. Because as we talked about at the time, that's that solid ice, those little ice balls that really are difficult to get rid of, especially when we never really warmed up any of that time. So the snow's mostly gone away at this point. but that pesky sleet is still on the ground a little bit. Now, it's melting rapidly at this point throughout the day today, and we're going to stay in the 50s overnight tonight as well, so that really should zap a lot of this away. It's in its last leg, but it's still kind of amazing, like you were saying, to even still have it on satellite imagery for today. That's pretty impressive around here, and it's been about 16 days. Oddly enough, the airport's not reporting that snow cover, but just driving around the area, we've had snow cover for about 16 days.
Yeah, so we're looking at the what's called the MODIS view. It's a polar orbiting satellite that comes by a couple times a day, and you can clearly see the ground is brown everywhere. And then you get from Statesville north to High Point to Greensboro, Winston-Salem, up to Mount Airy. There's definitely a little. You could see the reflectivity of snow still on the ground. You see a lot more up in Virginia in the mountains, but you can clearly tell that there's snow on the ground there. And I think that's a good point about the sleet, because we talk a lot about this with man-made snow in the mountains. Sleet, because it's almost solid ice, it just takes forever to melt, and it just sits there. And when we threw that snow on top of it, I'm sure that was just like the man-made snow in the mountains. When you build a base up with some of that high water content snow up there, it tends to kind of refrigerate and stick around for a while. But I was impressed, because I looked at it, I'm like, wow, I knew there was some snow, but the fact that it's that visible is pretty crazy. And you're right, tonight will be a good melt night because of how warm it's going to be overnight. And down here, we might not drop below 60 in some areas, especially if the clouds come in quickly enough and we get some moisture. But boy, man, this is going to be one of those events I think we're going to remember for a long time, because for that to be on the ground still, what's it, almost 2.5 weeks later? Blows my mind. Speaking of that, I saw a great tweet today or this morning, and actually made me think about it. Was down in Mississippi, Tim. We remember the ice storm that we did have, but it wasn't crippling. Kind of affected Mississippi and Tennessee. It's been 2 weeks and 2 days. James, correct me. It was that was a Friday, Saturday event.
The first one?
Yeah, the first event where we got the sleet and ice. But there's still people in Mississippi that do not have power back today, as of this date.
Wow.
I mean, and I thought it was a really, I think it was one of the local weather service offices posted it, and they made a really good point that, like, hey, that could have been us, and that's why we were so, I want to say, so forward thinking and trying to mitigate the impacts of that, because if we would have got that kind of ice, that just kind of shows you how long it takes to recover from that. And I think that was something that stuck with me, because we forget about that storm. It was so long ago. And people are still without power in parts of Mississippi.
Yeah, I just checked. It looks like about 4,000 customers in Mississippi still without power, at least according to that poweroutage.us site. Tennessee was almost that long. But those ice storms, I mean, they had close to an inch of ice, right, in some of those areas.
Yes.
When you get that level, I mean, it really is all-out disaster mode. And unfortunately, especially that Oxford area, I mean, just about as bad as could be imagined. And that was the potential around here. We're really still fortunate that as wintry as the last couple of weeks might have been, and however many disruptions to your kids going to school there might have been, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot more impactful and a lot more damaging, really, to everything around here. So got to count our blessings in some ways, I think.
Yeah, it blew my mind. So I'm looking at Statesville this morning. I'm trying to see what their actual low was. Looks like it might have been like 24 or 25, and they got up to 72 today. And so I pulled up their biggest turn. So the first date on here, I think, is an error. It was not 36 to 102. That definitely looks like an error.
That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. But I believe this would be number 2 on this list of biggest changes in Statesville's diurnal history there. But their history only goes back to 1998. The record doesn't go back as far. But that struck me this morning, because I'm like, wow, that's a huge swing in temperature. It's funny. If you look at that chart there, you see that little spike up to 102. There definitely was some bad data in there, but that kind of shows you up towards that area with the snow on the ground this morning, including you guys, that it seemed like the swings were much bigger because of that snow cover and how cold it was this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's just super impressive, especially on the cold side of things. And then the warm up, it wasn't unexpected, but I thought it would be more like 65 instead of around 70. So sometimes these almost record breakers are a little bit difficult to lean into enough when you're forecasting it. It's just almost hard to believe, considering we hadn't been above 50 degrees in 17 days. Well, shoot, there we go all the way up to 70. So not quite warm enough.
Well, I jokingly call that Southwest flow the blowtorch, and it lived up to its reputation today because it really heated us up. Now, we talked about this, I believe it was yesterday. It seems like, today's only Tuesday. We talked about the big crack in the ice up in Lake Erie, and I just brought the satellite imagery up again. The crack has gotten huge. I mean, there's actually several big cracks now, very wide cracks. But we got a report about these from somebody on the ground up in our Cleveland markets, our sister station, WKYC up there. And they filed this report today about what this crack looked like from ground level, or in this case, lake level.
Huge crack has formed in the ice on Lake Erie, prompting warnings to stay off. But some people are still headed to Edgewater to venture out onto the ice this day.
We walked a little bit further out, and I heard cracking.
Oh boy. When did you hear that cracking? What did you think when you heard that cracking?
There were a couple times. So once it was a minimal crack, like it sounded like a shallow crack, not like thunder from underneath your feet.
Then Alyssa Webb said, the sound got louder.
Hearing that big thump crack.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And when you heard that
it made my heart jump up into my chest.
Oh my gosh. Alyssa and Clay aren't the only ones who heard those cracks.
And as I was standing right there taking a picture, I heard a little crack and I said, I'm out.
And the unpredictability of the ice is why Cleveland Fire Lieutenant Mike Norman says it's best to enjoy the lake from the edge of the water, not on it.
Even as that surface is frozen, there are currents running underneath. The river is still running underneath that ice. That can create different depths to the ice. It's just not safe to go out on that ice.
Yeah, I'd be running if I heard that. The satellite imagery is crazy today because the cracks have gotten really big. I think it had a lot to do with the wind shift, but definitely the fire chief was right. There's a lot of currents underneath there, moving water. Tim, I'll ask you this question because I worked my second job in broadcasting. I worked in Traverse City, Michigan, and I actually drove my car across Lake Cadillac up there. It's an inland lake, smaller, almost daily during the winter. It was just common way to cut across the lake. And people think that's crazy, but back then one of my jobs as the meteorologist was you had to report the ice depth every day. And once you got to a foot, people could drive their vehicle, their snow machine out there. And because ice fishing was huge, right? Everyone get their ice shanty out there. But I'll ask you, have you ever driven a car on a frozen body of water? If you have, you'll know it. Even when I knew it was several feet thick, it is the scariest thing I think I've ever done.
Yeah, I've not been the driver before, but I have been a passenger.
Okay.
On the ice, when I was a kid or something. We had ice fishing where I grew up. My family wasn't one that did it, but I went with a buddy out to do that, and we called it Sandy Pond. Was just a little inlet off of Lake Ontario. It always froze. But yeah, it's a little unsettling, isn't it? I mean, you've really got to trust the science. And to reiterate, we don't do that around here. You should right now, but. What's amazing to me, Brad, you just brought up the cool satellite imagery of Lake Erie. Yeah. There's so many places that have so much ice on them right now that haven't in recent years. So you can think about the Chesapeake Bay. Around Long Island, there's a lot of this going on in the different sounds. The Delaware Bay, in fact, as well.
There's Delaware Bay right there. Look at all that
Philly.
ice.
That's a lot for them. And that's, at that point, you're talking about salty water, too. So this is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so this is 2 days ago, and you can actually see the ice is coming down the Delaware River. So it's freshwater ice floating out into the bay. And you're right, this is saltwater. So the freezing point of saltwater is like 28, 25. It's got to be much colder than freshwater. Chesapeake, just to bring up, there's a bunch of ice in Chesapeake. So it really does kind of go to the longevity of the cold snap. And I saw someone post about some of the locals in the Delaware Bay area, Dover, up in there, said they haven't seen it like that since the 70s. It's been the late 70s. They've seen that much ice up there. And It has been. The cold this year has really been centered on the East Coast. It's been a really interesting pattern. And out west, they've had almost no cold and certainly no snow. I think Salt Lake City is still sitting in like 1 inch of snow for the year. And areas in the southeast, including Charleston and parts of Florida, have had more snow than Salt Lake City, which is it's just been a weird year, Tim.
Some really weird stats, and I think probably, the fact that pendulum has been swung so hard in one direction so far this winter kind of leads me to believe that it will probably be swinging in that opposite direction going over these next couple of weeks. I know the longer range patterns are showing better chances of us being above average, a little warmer for temperatures over the next couple of weeks. I tend to think just, the way that things even out eventually, there's some truth to that. So probably if you're looking to stay a little warmer than recent memory, I think that we're going to be doing that over those next couple of weeks. So maybe not 70 every day, but probably not going back to that big deep freeze either across the Carolinas over the next little bit. So we'll try and stay our best into those 50s and 60s with another pretty big warm-up coming into the middle of next week. Have some rain on the way too, going into this upcoming weekend. It had looked at one point to be kind of a wintry system threat for parts of the Carolinas, but at this point, it looks to mostly be just rain for us, but maybe a good amount of it too. So if you see any amounts of rain across the area, this would mostly be for Sunday. The earliest that it could maybe start would be Saturday evening. So we think about Valentine's plans. If you are going out and about, this would be heading into around 8, 9 o'clock or so. That would probably be the earliest that this could kind of start. But once we get beyond that, Sunday is kind of the main rain event across the Carolinas. And it is looking to be kind of on that moderate to heavy side at times. We're still fine-tuning the details on exactly how much rain you could get. But I do think that it looks like a bit of a soaker for a change. We haven't had much of that. Remember, we're still in drought condition across the Carolinas. But on the whole, about 1 inch is kind of a baseline or something that you could try and get to with this weather event. Here's the weather outlook from our folks at the Weather Prediction Center, the WPC. They're giving pretty good odds of at least 3/4 of an inch of rain to around 1 inch of rain. So this would be for Sunday mostly across North and South Carolina. A good amount of rain will be possible. And like we were saying, those longer range odds of warmer than usual weather, they look to continue for our area. So in the meantime, enjoy that warmth that we're going to have going into tomorrow. That's going to be another day above average for temperatures. Beyond that, we'll cool off a little bit closer to average for Thursday into Friday. Hey, we'll be right back here tomorrow with more live weather impact on a Wednesday. Enjoy that warm weather while you have it.